The newest buzz in environmental law is what we call green technology and sustainable, well, I would say sustainable energy, but I'll be corrected later. But we're going to talk about that next, right here on Due Process.
Major funding for Due Process is provided by Meade Lexus of Southfield and Meade Lexus of Lakeside, offering a large selection of new and pre-owned certified premium vehicles.
What if your car didn't come from a factory, but out in the world where you actually drive? You can find out at lexus.com/allnewrx.
And by WWJ News Radio 950, keeping you up to date with the latest news, traffic, weather, sports, and business information 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Thank you. This is Due Process, and I'm Henry Baskin. I'm going to tell you today that we're going to enter an area of the newest area of the law that I can see. It's called environmental law. With us today is James Newman from Newman Consulting Company. I want to welcome you to Due Process, Jim.
Thank you, Henry.
And Saulius Mikalonis, who is an attorney with Plunkett Cooney, is also what we call one of those lawyers who are into the environmental law area. And environmental law has a lot of buzzwords. And if you could explain to me globally what is environmental law and what does it contain, then we can talk to Jim and our guest about it.
Sure. Whenever anyone asks me to explain what environmental law, it's a very simple concept. Environmental law is designed to internalize external costs. And when I say that, I'll give you an example. If you're a company that's producing a widget, you make a profit on that widget. You have your workers, you pay them, you have your machinery, you have your tools, you have all that stuff, your molds, all that sort of stuff. And those are costs that you bear to make those widgets. Well, back in the bad old days, the widgets would be made. The other thing that a business would do, a byproduct of that business, along with the costs, other costs, is pump pollution into the air, into the water. They never bore those costs at all. The people that bore those costs, if you live next door and that pollution fell on your house, you paid those costs. If your water got polluted and you couldn't use it, you paid those costs, not the company. What environmental law does is very simply say to a company, if you're going to make a profit on your activities, you have to pay for all the costs. So you have to prevent that pollution from getting out and harming other people. And that's basically environmental law in a nutshell.
Okay, so we turn to people like Jim Newman. Do you act as a consultant to people who are in construction or reconstruction?
That's exactly what we do. We help them build what we call greener, more sustainable buildings or homes or developments or whatever it might be.
When you say sustainable, what exactly do you mean?
Okay, actually, what we look at is the cost of doing it relative to what natural resources we're using and what we're using relative to getting something from out of the ground to the place where we're using it, and then recycling it. What does all of this cost? It's called life cycle cost.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever see the commercial about purifying water where someone's selling a purification system as opposed to a plastic bottle? And the end of the commercial, it says, the bottle will be here forever, that empty bottle.
Correct.
And you'll benefit from using the purification system.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Is that part of what you're trying to do? Take these landfills and make sure that they don't have elements for the next 100 years that still exist in the same form?
It absolutely is one of the things we're trying to do. And a lot of, in fact, the plastic bottle that you were talking about, what we're doing with those today, at least the ones that don't get put into the landfills, is we're grinding them up and recycling them. A lot of the new carpeting today, for instance, has little pieces of plastic bottle in it.
Okay, how do we get to make people more environmentally conscious? Do we do it because we reward them with money? Where are the incentives?
Well, whenever anybody asks me about this, I always say, there's about 10 or 15% of the population who'll do the right thing because it's the right thing to do.
Okay.
You know, they firmly believe in Gaia and the environment and everything should be protected. Everyone else has to be dragged pretty much kicking and screaming, and you have to show them why it's in their best interest, and usually their economic best interests, to do this. And that's the thing about sustainability. Sustainability shows people that doing the right thing is not only good because it's the right thing to do, but it's also profitable, reduces your costs, and makes you live better. And that's how things have changed. We're going from a command control sort of environmental regime to an area where this is in your best interest, and we'll show you how it's in your best interest.
Sometimes the best incentive is having the federal government give some TARP money, so to speak, to these industries.
Well, actually,
does that happen?
Some of these things are actually happening. People change for two reasons. They realize it's in their best interest, and the key word there is realize, or they're forced to. So there are some laws coming down the pike that are forcing us to do some of these things, but the government is giving away billions of dollars to the states through the Department of Energy for some of its very simple things like weather stripping, better insulation in low-income homes, and those types of things.
I've seen the ads, I've seen the commercials. Is that true? That says if you buy our windows, you may be able to get money back from the government.
That's correct, because a lot of these windows, for example, I remember my first house that I owned and lived in Birmingham, we had single pane glass with aluminum borders. I mean, that thing was like, in the winter, it was like having a door about this big open in your house. It was horrible.
Right,
but the thing is that the government's giving this money away, and one of the reasons the government's providing these incentives, and some of these are loans, these aren't necessarily just giveaway dollars. The reason is because there are upfront costs to making things more efficient. Not everybody's got that money. In this society, and lately, I mean, one of the problems we've gotten ourselves into is the short-term thinking quarter to quarter. But in the long term, the return on investment on environmental sustainability is very good. But if you can reduce the upfront costs, it makes that return on investment much better. And that's what the government's doing. They're reducing that time for return on investment.
What about the use of the new roofing materials, such as copper and metal? Is it recommended?
Actually, we're looking at doing a lot of that, and one of the things that the new roofing materials do is you think of if you have black asphalt shingles on your roof, in the summertime, your attic is a whole lot warmer, hotter, not warmer, but a whole lot hotter, and that heat is moving down into your home, so your air conditioning bill goes up. By putting better roofs on, more insulation, better windows, you can lower both your heating and cooling costs. So in a new home, that's the way they're being built today typically, and there are many certifications that people can get.
Using metal materials for roofs.
Some people are using metal materials for roofs. They tend to be a little bit pricey.
Well, they're pricey. The only downside I see, aside from price, is the noise. When it rains.
Right. Well, if they have the proper base, it really doesn't add much noise.
Okay.
But you have to have a proper base on it.
What else are people doing to their heating and air conditioning systems?
Okay. Some of the new mandates that have actually come down from the government are higher efficiency condensing units. That unit that sits outside your home, if you have air conditioning on your furnace, they're much higher efficiency today, much better, much quieter, and use a lot less energy than they did 10 years ago for the same amount of cooling that comes out of them.
What about washers and dryers?
Same thing. You use less water, less energy. The other thing that's important, one of the reasons the government wants to do this is not only because they want people to live in homes cheaper, but if you're using less energy, there's less need to build that coal-fired electrical plant. There's less need to build more large-scale electrical power. The cheapest energy is the energy you don't have to produce to begin with. And so there's a huge push to make things more efficient.
Before we go to our guest, I just want to ask you what your personal opinions about, there's a big push on by the coal industry to use that resource for heating and electrical power. How do you feel about that?
Well, actually, the United States is sitting on probably about as much coal as Saudi Arabia and the Middle East is sitting on oil. So if we could do something to make it cleaner, and they are working very hard at that. I mean, this whole clean coal thing isn't quite there yet, but there's a lot of research going on to make coal cleaner.
Yeah, and one of the problems with coal is obviously the carbon that gets pumped in the air, and there's got to be a way to reduce that carbon because, even though they're fighting about it right now in Congress, eventually the United States will have to go to some sort of regime to reduce carbon emissions. The rest of the world's doing it. We're going to be doing it. Now, we have a choice. We can take the lead on that, be the developers of that technology and sell that technology to the rest of the world, or we can be followers and have to buy it from China and Europe.
Okay, we have Bob Mattler here by remote. He's an attorney. He's an associate green broker, and he's with the Armada Real Estate Services. Bob, welcome to Due Process, if you can hear me.
Thanks for having me, Henry.
Hey, Bob, you've heard the discussion that we've had with our experts here. Can you tell me more about what you do in your field as an associate green broker?
I'm a commercial real estate broker with Armada Real Estate Services, and what we're trying to do is we're trying to move the green agenda forward for our built environment here in southeastern Michigan with developers, owners, and including residential owners who have an interest in this area, might want to get involved in retrofitting a building, and certainly are interested in lowering their energy costs.
You sell used buildings or used homes, right?
That's correct.
What do you do with the mold, the disclosures and things such as that?
Well, in Michigan, we have the Seller's Disclosure Act, which requires a seller of a residential property to disclose all he knows about the condition of that property, including any environmental hazards that might be on it. So it's a good faith method for the real estate owner to write down what he knows about that building or that residence, I should say.
What if they don't know about green or black mold, for example?
Correct, and that's why it's incumbent upon the buyer of a property, especially a buyer who's buying from someone other than a real estate owner, a residential owner, to bring in an inspection service, a qualified inspection service to look for mold. Mold can be in many different areas. Where there's moisture, there's an opportunity for mold to grow, and it is a problem that the buyer needs to be aware of.
Does the mold, the green mold is not toxic, but they tell me black mold is. Is that true?
Well, there's over 1,000 different types of mold, and there have been indications and studies indicating that black mold is toxic. However, one of the problems with mold is it's not like asbestos where there are governmental standards for it. There is no benchmark for mold as to what would be serious mold for somebody who has an existing condition. And another thing with mold is if you take yourself out of that circumstance, you will be much better. So it's very difficult to quantify how much mold is bad mold, but certainly it's a pre-existing condition that needs to be taken care of, and a good inspection service should do that on the purchase of a home.
Well, I've seen mold reports, and I actually could not understand them because they were describing different types of molds and without a solution. So I don't even know if the green mold or the brown mold was going to be toxic or affect people. And I don't understand that concept at all. I mean,
right, and that's part of the problem. That's part of the problem. Some people have a very high tolerance to the worst molds out there, and other people can have allergic reactions to a much lower dose of mold. So it's very important that when you are purchasing a home that you get yourself a very good inspector to look at those areas where mold might be growing, because quite honestly, a seller of a home might not know where the mold is growing. It could be behind a wall, it could be in the furnace, right. It could be in a humidifier, and it's very important for the purchaser of a home, especially if he's buying it from a bank or a mortgage company, because they're less liable, to take it upon himself to get a very good environmental inspection of the home.
Can either of you tell us about the disclosure that the Chinese asbestos was faulty and caused some toxic problems? You know,
I actually haven't heard of that too much being a problem in Michigan. It was my understanding that with Hurricane Katrina and also the South, that that was a much bigger problem there. Saulius might be able to help you with that.
Yeah. Saulius, have you heard about that?
Yeah, there's massive litigation across the country. People going after their insurers denying claims. But this is where you're talking about is Chinese drywall,
right,
being used in a variety of different homes, and especially in areas where massive buildup needs to be done quickly. And you know, like the toothpaste and the toys filled with lead paint that the Chinese gave us, I guess they gave us asbestos-filled drywall.
Well, how would you know? What are people going to do about that?
Well, they're tracking it right now. I mean, they're trying to find out where it was put in, and where it's being put in, they're trying to get it out. Many people are making insurance claims on the existence of that that drywall in their homes, and there's been a lot of litigation over it.
Okay, we're going to go to a break right now. Would you stay with us, and we're going to talk more about some of the areas that we can fix, some that are sustainable and some that are not. We'll be right back.
Legal referrals and more information on this and other related topics are available on our website at www.dueprocess.tv. There you'll find information on today's program, helpful hints to legal issues, support materials, and lawyer referrals. You can also stream previous episodes of Due Process.
Gonna be me. We're back on Due Process talking to Jim Newman, Saulius, Mikalonis, and Bob Mattler. The mold that the products that come in from other countries are inspected presumably by the United States government, I would imagine.
Very small percentage.
Okay, I mean, we buy lumber. Who's inspecting the lumber for boll weevils or whatever it is that you find in lumber?
That's probably Department of Agriculture, but again, they can't inspect 100%. It's impossible.
Okay, and there was an area of concern with this cement. Some of the components of cement were breaking apart after a certain amount of use.
Well, there's a lot of building products out there. Not necessarily cement, but there was another substance called ethos. These are building products that were a lot of times either mismanufactured or used in a way that they weren't designed to be used. Mm-hmm. And you're going to find that all over the place. The nice thing about a green building is they know. Somebody like Jim knows what the good stuff is, and they know how these buildings need to be put together, and what might be appropriate for like Arizona might not be appropriate for Michigan or Oregon.
Bob Mattler, you're an associate green broker. What does that mean exactly?
I'm trying to work with residential owners who are interested in buying a green home, what to look for, how it might be energy efficient for them to do so, and especially more on the commercial side. I'm trying to work with commercial building owners, investors, and landowners who are interested in saving money and getting into a healthier building.
Well, if you take a customer out to see a building that has a flat roof, for example, I have a client who tells me that water always wins. So you have a flat roof and the water's lying there. If it's not going to dissipate by evaporation, it has to go somewhere. Do you agree with that?
I do agree with that, and there are remediation things that you can do to make that a better situation. Saulius had indicated that this is not something new, the environmental and the green building. You know, we've had rain cisterns, we've had rain barrels, rain gardens. There's lots of different features that an architect could come in to retrofit that building. One, make it more energy efficient. Two, maybe even use the water for other needs, including landscaping and irrigation purposes. And there's just a lot of fresh new ideas out there to take away the problem and make it into a cost-saving feature.
Well, that's right. We sort of, there was a lapse of time when the Romans had cisterns. We sort of ignored that and moved on with our own projects.
Well, yeah, sometimes the best ideas are ones that have already been in existence for thousands of years.
Got to go back to Italy and check those out.
Well, and that's exactly what's happening. These fresh new ideas, none of them are fresh new ideas in reality. You talked about the Romans, our grandparents, when they went, or great-grandparents, or whatever it might have been, when they went across to the west, they saved all the rainwater in these barrels and what have you, and just reused them.
Okay.
Americans use 4.8 billion gallons of potable water, the kind of water we drink, every day just to flush toilets.
Say that again,
4.8 billion gallons of water every day just to flush toilets.
Are you all familiar with the Great Lakes Basin situation? Mm-hmm. Okay, that that means that if you're in the basin, the Great Lakes Basin, you can take water out, presumably.
Right.
But it has to flow back in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, not only that, not only does it have to flow back in, you have to design your systems so that you are able to reuse and that water stays within the system. That was sort of the deal when they did the Great Lakes Compact. The Congress approved it. They said, yeah, you've got all this fresh water. 20% of the fresh surface water in the world is in Michigan. And we'll not let Arizona pick it up. But in return, you've got to preserve that resource.
Well, you remember the great water wars in California. I mean, they were killing people.
They're going
over
on
water.
right now.
They're going on now.
Yes,
They're going on right now.
Yes, they are.
And Atlanta was within 1 month of losing potable water just 2 years ago. So it's an issue that's going to be coming back again and again.
Well, somebody wanted to truck water in freighters or large vessels and sell them to Japan. out of Lake Superior, I think.
Well, they were even talking about, I remember when I was a kid, people were talking about hooking up to icebergs and dragging them down.
Dragging the icebergs?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
back in the day.
Let me ask you, do each one of you believe in global warming? Jim,
Absolutely.
you do.
Yep.
Saulius?
I think it's beyond question. You've got the Pentagon, the United States government, the Pentagon identifies it as one of the top, I think, 5 major future issues that we will have to deal with, us national security issues. You got a bunch of generals and colonels who are very serious people taking it very seriously. I take it seriously.
Well, Mattler, it's 2-0 right now.
I'm going to agree with my gentleman over there. I do believe that there is scientific evidence beyond a question and beyond a doubt makes this the biggest issue for not only our generation, but for the generations coming up behind us.
Political or not, there are people who deny it. People who say, hey, it's the coldest winter we've had. There's no global warming. But you can see evidence of global warming, can you not?
Everywhere.
Yeah,
Islands are disappearing.
Yeah, the last 10 years have been the warmest 10 years on record.
Okay, so what is that solution, to have a smaller carbon footprint? Is that what it is?
That's one of them.
Is that why the hybrid cars that we saw one advertised here, or shown here, I can't say advertised on public television, but shown here, and the idea that hybrid is not to give you greater gas mileage, but is to make the carbon footprint smaller, I believe.
If you look at it, you don't have to agree with global warming to agree with renewable energy and sustainable development. And the reason why is because if you think about what renewable energy and sustainable development is, in a nutshell, is making things more efficient.
Okay,
and when you make things more efficient, you make things cheaper. And instead of pumping and taking billions of dollars and shipping it over to the Middle East, where people who want to kill us make a lot of money on our oil use, if you keep that money here, you benefit. Okay,
well, that's one thing. But if your plans for sustainable energy and green technology, if they go in, if the public buys into it, a majority of the public, we're going to have less global warming, are we not?
Yeah. But the point I guess the point I was trying to make is you don't have to believe in global warming to support sustainable development, renewable energy.
No, I understand
because
that.
there are other benefits.
But if you do believe in it, it's going to lessen the effects of global warming.
Right, exactly. And one of the things we have, a lot of what we talk about is new construction. But when you really stop to think about it, there are many, many more existing buildings, whether they be homes or commercial buildings or industrial plants or what have you, than there are new ones being built. So one of the best ways to conserve energy is to conserve it in existing buildings. And that's what we look at.
Just briefly, we're running out of time, but I want to talk about the windmills that we have creating energy in the state of Michigan. Is that a viable industry as far as you're concerned?
Absolutely.
That's going to take the place of our automotive industry in my mind.
Do you believe that?
I do.
Oh, okay. I mean, I don't know what each windmill pumps out.
It depends on the size.
Yeah, there are a variety of different sizes. In the United States, there's a standard size because they have more land.
But are you committed to it? I mean, do you believe in it?
Our governor is, and I believe that that's the direction that we're heading, Henry.
Okay. Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, if you take a look at a wind turbine, there are 8,000 parts in a wind turbine. What does Michigan do best? We make parts.
We make parts.
It's a no-brainer. It really is.
But does it produce the energy necessary to sustain this society?
Not yet. And we've got two problems. The transmission lines, we need to change how we transmit electricity around the country, and we need batteries to store it so that when you have wind turbines in an area and you don't need all that electricity that you're generating, you put it into these much more efficient batteries than we have even today and use it.
Let me ask you a final question about the use of batteries in automobiles. Should I not buy that car tomorrow, or should I wait for the batteries to come in? You plug in Volt, that's General Motors car.
Plug-in hybrids.
Do you believe in that? Do you believe in that as a way to energize the automobile industry?
It's one way.
It's one way.
Well, how about you? Do you agree, Bob?
I think that's a great alternative to petroleum, yes.
What's another way to sustain the automotive industry?
Well, there was a car down at Comerica Park during their Green Day, which had solar panels on it from the University of Michigan.
Solar panels?
Solar panels.
I think the point, just off that very excellent point, there's no one technology is going to solve all our issues. Wind is not going to save us. Solar's not going to save us. Nuclear is not going to save us. Green building, but a combination of those technologies and those sustainable technologies and renewable energies, it has to be a combination. No one thing is going to take the place of carbon.
Everybody's looking for the silver bullet. We get asked that question a lot. What's the silver bullet? There is no silver bullet. It's a combination.
Combination of things.
Combination.
We're going to have to wrap it up. The good thing is my voice got better, and
Yes,
I
it
want to
did.
thank you all for being here. It's important that we get this information out to the public, and that's what this show is
Absolutely.
designed to do.
Good.
So thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
taking the time to be our guest today.
It's been a
And
pleasure.
look forward to seeing you soon.
Very good. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, when you get back, say it.
I sure will.
Major funding for Due Process is provided by Meade Lexus of Southfield and Meade Lexus of Lakeside, offering a large selection of new and pre-owned certified premium vehicles.
What if your car didn't come from a factory, but out in the world where you actually drive? You can find out at lexus.com/allnewrx.
And by WWJ News Radio 950, keeping you up to date with the latest news, traffic, weather, sports, and business information 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.